What go best with the Warriors win? Free cookies! And not just one cookie or two cookie, but 3 free cookies!
When the Golden State Warriors win, get 1 free 3-pack of cookies.
Toongas love cookies, but Toongas love free cookies even mostest. Get that W, Warriors.
AM/PM, too much good stuff. Proud partner of the Golden State Warriors. Only 1,000 deals available on the AM/PM map for 24 hours on a first-come, first-served basis between October 18, 2022 and April 10, 2023. Only at participating AM/PM stores while supplies last.
You've been listening to the Golden State Warriors Audio Network.
Presented by United Airlines.
This has been a presentation of Odyssey Sports. For even more coverage of your team, download the free Odyssey app and listen to your favorite stations, shows, and podcasts.
That's a wrap.
Yo, that's a wrap. It was an amazing experience. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Hope they got some laughs, some good entertainment.
This is Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
Embiid back to the basket, turns and faces, pump fake. Dribble drive into a double team. Blocked by JaMychal Green, who saved it falling out of bounds. Got it to DiVincenzo. 4-on-4. DiVincenzo waits for the trailer. JaMychal Green back to Dante from 25. That's nothing but net. He's 5 for 5. And the Warriors lead by 11, 38-27.
Largest lead for the Warriors at that point is Dante DiVincenzo was doing his best Steph Curry in the first quarter, as he knocked down 5 3-pointers, and the Warriors hit 9 of 12 as a team, but the offense would fade as the ball game goes along. Warriors with their largest lead at that point, up 38-33 into the first quarter, and the third quarter really flips this thing as the Sixers get back into it in quarter number 2. 33-44 Philly in the third, and then the Sixers put the Warriors away 30-25 in the fourth. Add it all up, 118-106 is the final, and we welcome you inside Warriors wrap-up here on 95.7 The Game. John Dickinson with you, and simply put, welcome to life without Stephen Curry for the foreseeable future for the Golden State Warriors, as they've now dipped to 0-3 on this road trip, as they lose to Philly tonight, now 14-16 through 30 games of the season, and the Warriors still just can't buy one on the road. Now 2-14 away from Chase Center, and the Warriors with losses in Milwaukee, Indiana, and Philadelphia to start this trip. They play Toronto, the Knicks, and Nets coming up here over the final 3 before the Dubs return home for 8 after Christmas week, beginning on Christmas and heading on in through the new year. So 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. That is the phone number to give me a call or shoot me a text here on Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game. All in all, I think the end of the first quarter told the story as far as the Warriors hit 9 threes. Dante DiVincenzo was going off. The ball was moving. At one point, I think the Warriors had 14 assists on their first 15 made baskets, and they were really doing the best possible job they could with Dante DiVincenzo going into the starting lineup. No Draymond Green, no Andrew Wiggins, in addition to no Steph Curry for the Warriors in this one. And DiVincenzo was hot in that first quarter. Jordan Poole was hot in the third quarter. But I think when you look at the first quarter and the fact that, hey, the Warriors are playing a team that fancies themselves to be contenders in the Eastern Conference in Philadelphia, they think they're right up there with Milwaukee and Boston at the top, and they dealt with some injuries themselves and are starting to put things together, had been really putting things together. I think they've won 10 of 11 on their home floor now and improved to 16-12. But you shoot it as well as you did for the Warriors in that first quarter, and you're only up 5. And that was pretty much the tell right there that the Warriors probably weren't going to have a great shot to win the game, even though cosmetically, for the most part, they competed, I think, pretty well with the best that they had. But it wasn't enough consistent multiple players going off at the same time. It was DiVincenzo early, it was Poole in the second half, and in particular in the third quarter. And tonight's one of those nights where you look at Poole's line at the end of the night. Offensively, it ends up looking pretty good, although 4 turnovers for Jordan Poole. But tonight's a night where you hat tip Klay Thompson for stepping up and going out there and wanting to play, given the fact that Steph Curry's out and given the fact that he's already missing the second games of back-to-backs due to his injury, return, and recovery and maintenance, and he wants to be out there, and he knows this team is shorthanded. He wants to help them try and keep this season afloat. But then Klay Thompson is terrible tonight, like just flat out. 4 of 17, he's taking bad shots. He's not hitting, and tonight's really a night where if you're the Warriors, you need Klay Thompson to be playing at a relatively high level if you're going to have an opportunity with a couple of other players playing well offensively to try and be in position to win the game or steal it down the stretch. And so that's something that stands out on the negative side here. And as we talked about the other night, once you start to move your better bench players into the starting lineup by necessity, your bench just continues to get more and more depleted. And the Warriors just don't have enough NBA caliber players on their bench right now to give them consistent minutes. And that's even with Steve Kerr trying to shorten it as much as he can in terms of the overall minutes, really leaning on the guys that were in the starting lineup with DiVincenzo out there and Klay playing 35 minutes and Kevon Looney, the assist maestro. I mean, Kevon Looney, hell of a game for him. 14, 11, and 9. He was a big part of that ball movement, especially early, but something that if you're a Warriors fan, you already knew was true. It's been true in recent years, although the Warriors last season were able to win some games with Curry out. Down the stretch toward the end of the season, they stole some games even against some good teams at their bench, but that was a much better bench that the Warriors had last year. It was a more veteran-laden bench that the Warriors had last year, and they were playing those games from a position of advantage because they had built up so much of a cushion in the early part of the season that they could withstand taking some of those losses, and right now it's just the opposite. At this point, you get the feeling, and I've talked about it a lot, this team needed to be better than 13 and 11 before the injuries hit. And that was the one downside for the 3-7 start and the inability to win a road game at all on that first Eastern trip of the season. You were playing with fire if you were the Golden State Warriors. You needed to, they were saying, and fans are saying, and media people are saying, hey, it's fine, they're fine. Well, yeah, they're fine if they're going to play with their entire deck throughout the course of the season. They would continue to get on a roll, but this thing clearly flipped going back to that Indiana game where the Warriors lose, can't quite complete that to get to 14 and 11, then just the gut punch loss in Salt Lake City, and now the injuries have piled up with no Wiggins, and Steph Curry goes down, and when Steph Curry goes down, then you start to wonder if Draymond Green's going to be able to give it a go, and Draymond, I know he's been dealing with this quad contusion, but it's another night where it just, it almost seems like at times somebody's making the call that if Steph isn't playing, it isn't worth Draymond Green's time to be out there. And that's the one nod that I am going to give Klay Thompson tonight, is that he wanted to be out there and wanted to try and help his team hold this season up. But the reality is, if the Warriors are going to salvage this thing over the course of the next 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, however long it winds up being, and I don't think anybody really has a firm grip on it at this point, however long Steph Curry's out, if we're talking about 12, 13, 15 games, whatever it is, if the Warriors are going to maintain some semblance of hanging around 500, they have got to get everybody else back. And everybody else has got to be committed, and everybody else has got to be in lockstep, or this team's going to be in a position where they're going to spend the final, let's say, 40 games of this season just trying to work their way back to 500. And, oh, by the way, this team was still only a couple of games over 500 over a month and a half stretch where they had everybody healthy. So you start to wonder, and yeah, championship teams, you think if they're healthy down the stretch are going to make a push, or at least teams with championship caliber players. Even the Warriors from 2 years ago had a 15-5 push in the final 20 to eke themselves into the play-in tournament. But at some point, it isn't really tenable without Steph, and the Warriors are now 0-4 without him. Although this, I think you could make the case, was one of their more cosmetically appealing games as far as compared to some of the other ones that he's missed. And a couple of those were just flat out developmental games where the Warriors decided, and this one almost felt like that kind of game. I think it would have for sure if Klay Thompson hadn't have gone in this one. It would have been, all right, well, let the kids play and see what they've got and then move on to the next one. But they got to get everybody else back if they're going to have a shot. And some promising news on that front. We'll hear from Steve Kerr coming up here on 95.7 The Game as far as maybe Andrew Wiggins is back. What's the latest with Draymond Green, and how do the Warriors try and get a win or two? I mean, hell, just one on this trip to stabilize things to the point where maybe you're only 3 games under 500 as opposed to 5 games under 500 when you get back home. I mean, you look right now at the 14 and 16, and nothing is off the table. I mean, the Warriors very easily could lose the next 3 games and have 14 and 16 turn into 14 and 19. And at that point, you could have a 6-2 homestand and you're not even 500 coming off of that 8-game homestand when you then go on another road trip and all of a sudden it's the middle of January and it's the middle of the season or just beyond the middle of the season and you're still 10th, 11th, somewhere in there, and wondering when you can get on a run. So 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. Let's get to Rochelle in Concord up first here tonight on Warriors Wrap-Up. What's going on, Rochelle?
Thank you. This is Michelle from Concord, and I called last night. I just... once again, Draymond tapped out the other night. He tapped out tonight. And, I just think that they should bubble wrap Curry for the rest of the season. And Poole deserves another chance. I'm hoping that Draymond is gone the next season, and we can start anew. Thank you.
Yep, appreciate it. Thanks for the call. Look, at this point, I mean, Jordan Poole needs to pull it together and try to go for 30 every night. And I thought he didn't get off to a great start in this game, but he maintained, knowing that he was going to get 36 minutes and knowing that they need him to basically play the Steph Curry role. And again, when I say that, nobody is Steph Curry, and Jordan Poole isn't even close to that. But he needs to be the guy that's going to have the ball in his hands a lot and is going to be looking to shoot a lot and score and facilitate for others and all of it. I like the decision to start Dante DiVincenzo along with Klay Thompson, bump Klay up to essentially a forward in this one and add a little bit of defensive ball pressure to the mix with him. I thought Jonathan Kuminga starting for Draymond made a lot of sense. And look, the Warriors did get off to a good start in this game, and a lot of that was the fact that DiVincenzo was making shots in the beginning and kind of doing his own Steph impression here. As far as Draymond goes, look, I'm never one to question somebody who's got an injury, and I will continue to point out, I mean, Draymond, right quadricep contusion, and that's what kept him out in this one. Obviously, he got ejected the other night after Steph Curry went out of the game with his injury, but there's too often it has seemed, and I think sometimes perception is reality, and too often it has seemed here in these last few years that if Steph isn't available, all of a sudden Draymond's willingness to get out there and play through some stuff, it dwindles a little bit. And you know what? I think we can debate whether that's right or wrong, and I can have people that would say, that they're comfortable with that. but I think it's too early in the season for my blood, 30 games into this thing, to be, you need to get as many of your best players out on the floor as you possibly can, and you need to try to win games. And I think this is where the Warriors do, their philosophy, and no regular season game is really all that important, and not necessarily going to chase wins if they don't believe that there is an elite premier end game to it. Like, can they win a championship? There's always this, well, if we think we can win a championship, then we're going to go all out, and we're going to fight, and we're going to chase it. And when that's the mentality, it lends itself to the thought that, well, if you don't think you could win a championship, then some of these games are beneath you. and at that point, to me, I think that can set a real negative tone, and a real negative tone even for some of the younger players who you're trying to develop and put in positive situations to try and succeed. So I think the Warriors are always trying to balance that fine line of none of these games are really all that important until you start to lose guys and you wind up sub 500 and you feel like the season is careening off a mountain because you don't have the two-time MVP and Finals MVP and future Hall of Famer and straw that stirs the drink here for the Warriors and Steph Curry. Like, life comes at you fast and things can flip. And, it's too early to be talking about shutting guys down, and it's too early to be talking about who's not going to be around next year. And we got to see how this thing ends this year. But I think the one thing that I'll just speak for myself, and you can disagree with it if you want. You can disagree with it if you want, but I want to see this team get out there and try and win some freaking games and do everything they possibly can to win some games. And, at times it seems like they're a little too focused on the big picture and it only being about a championship. And if it's not about a championship, then, you might as well just be, playing the young guys and who cares about winning, and let's see what kind of lottery pick you get. Now, that's an extreme, and nobody in the organization is saying that necessarily, at least I would hope not 30 games into the season, but that's the kind of stuff that you do start to hear from the fans along those lines, and I think it's unfortunate. I really do think it's unfortunate. So 888-957-9570. 888-957-9570. John Dickinson here on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game Xfinity Mobile text line. Warriors lose to the Sixers tonight, 118-106. They led by 11 early, 5 at the end of the first quarter. They were up 2 at the half, and the offense just went away for the Warriors as this game went on. 19 points in the second quarter, and then only 49 total in the second half as they get outscored 63-49 in the second half. Let's get to a couple of text messages here from the 415. JD, I thought Ty Jerome was on the team to run the offense and set up other players. Played selfish tonight, was hoping he would set up Wiseman. Well, there were a couple of nice setups, not from Jerome, one from DiVincenzo, one from Jordan Poole. I think, pick and roll with Poole. I think coming out of a timeout, DiVincenzo hit him for a dunk. Wiseman hit a little short jumper. I thought tonight, with Draymond out, Wiseman gets his minutes and ends up getting 11 minutes. And, offensively, I think that's how he needs to be most effective, how you saw him be effective in this game tonight. I think it's a baby step in a series of a lot of baby steps as far as Wiseman and his develop. I don't want to get carried away with, he looked great. He had a couple of nice plays offensively, and the Warriors functioned in a way that allowed him to succeed. I think, in the fashion that he has to if he is going to be able to help this team, whether it's this season or moving forward and the like. So I think that's, worth noting, I think. As you examine the young players, because I think examining the young players is something that we also have to now do on a night-in, night-out basis as far as, the two timelines and the evaluation of, all right, you lose the game. Why did you lose the game? Who played well? Who didn't play well? And then I think the next part of that is, evaluating Wiseman, evaluating Kuminga, evaluating Moses Moody. And, tonight, not really the best night for Kuminga and not the best night for Moses Moody either. Moody in his 16 minutes, just 3 points, missed some threes, just not much going on there for Moses Moody on a night where you really think Moses Moody could get an opportunity to play and could be impactful in the game tonight. It was kind of a lackluster Jonathan Kuminga game. Didn't seem like he had the energy that we've seen him have of late, and you just run through his line. He didn't have a single rebound tonight. Rebounding has been paramount as far as activity and rebounding and defense, and he was moving the ball as everybody was offensively, but I don't think Kuminga did anything in his 28 minutes that really put a positive imprint on the game whatsoever. And so I think tonight is a step back night for Jonathan Kuminga. Is it a big deal? No. He's going to have some bad games. He's going to have some good games, and I think he still figures to be in the rotation if all things are equal at this point, and he proved himself to be a member of the rotation when the Warriors had figured out their bench for a minute before the injuries started to pile up on him. But not a great Kuminga game, and the 510 saying Wiseman had a more impactful 11 minutes than Anthony Lamb. And, Anthony Lamb hit a couple of threes. I mean, it's, I think it's probably about this. I mean, there's nights where Anthony Lamb does stuff and make some shots, and you like to see it, but it's also a scenario where I think there's times where he flat out looks like a G leaguer out there. He looks like he's uncomfortable getting a shot. It's not fluid. There's some carelessness as far as the turnovers, some inattention to detail defensively out there. I mean, you need guys like Anthony Lamb on your team at this point, and on certain nights, Anthony Lamb is going to be more trustable than some of the young players, and that's why Steve Kerr's gone to him. Tonight, it's a night where so many players are out. He's going to play. I'm not going to quibble with you if you think Wiseman had more of an impact tonight than Anthony Lamb, but Anthony Lamb plays a different position and needs to be out there. So 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. John Dickinson here on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. Let's go back to the phones. It's Kay in San Francisco. What's going on, Kay? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up.
Yeah, I think we're desperately missing a big man. We're also desperately missing a shooter when our stars are playing or if they are not having a good day. We need an athletic shooter and a big man. We need to have them for these kind of troubled days to show up, but we don't have either. And I think that's a big setback no matter what we do.
I think they probably need another wing if they want to be a contender. And I've said it, somebody that could maybe take some of Kuminga's minutes if this team got to a point down the stretch of the season where they really needed to win game after game after game. And in the playoffs, it's not that you wouldn't trust Kuminga in the playoffs, but you might get to a point where he's part of the plan going into a playoff series, and then you need to go away from him because he plays his way out. I mean, nothing is fluid, and we've seen him play his way out of the rotation in the regular season. It could certainly happen in a playoff scenario, but right now I feel like the Warriors just need more good players. And look, a big part of that is Draymond coming back, Wiggins coming back, and playing this thing from that point where you're going to have Poole and Klay Thompson out there. You're going to have Wiggins. I mean, Wiggins right now is so huge because we talk about Curry and rightfully so. I mean, he is the system, he is the franchise, but having a wing and a guy that's still 27 years old that can get out there and can slash to the basket, can knock down some threes, can provide some defense. I mean, Wiggins is just Mr. Steady for this team. So, getting him out there, getting Draymond out there, that allowing Poole to play the Curry role, even though he's not Curry, and then build the rotation off of that, I do think gives this team, especially once they get back on the home floor, an opportunity to at least remain competitive in some of these games to where you start catching teams on a bad night. Maybe they're at the end of a trip or whatever, and you can pick off some wins here that might push you back a little bit toward 500. But this situation right now, where the Warriors are essentially without three starters, is, I mean, this is, you got to do this for a couple of weeks. You might not win a single game. Period. Like with the group that played tonight, if you had to play 10 games with this group, that you played tonight, and tonight was one of the, like I said, more cosmetically appealing games. You got to play 10, 12, 15 games with this group, and you might win 1 or 2 or 3 at that point. Like 1 out of 10, 2 out of 12, 3 out of 15. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation, especially if you're playing teams on an East trip and playing teams that fancy themselves to be contenders in the NBA. It may sound harsh, but it's just real at this point. Let's go to T in the South Bay next here on Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game. What's going on tonight, T?
Nothing much. How you doing?
I'm hanging in there. It's okay. Tough times. It feels like are ahead here in the short term. T.
I know that's not your favorite question because you get it a lot, but it's kind of my sound check to make sure you can hear me. So I just have a few things. I'm going to start with James Wiseman and a quick take on that. I'm of the mindset that the post position has come and gone. It's paved the way for a lot of great play, and it's definitely appropriate and necessary for the history of the game. But moving forward, if you're a post and you're a good post, then you might not even look that good in the NBA. And my point is that James Wiseman can, do a lot of work in the post and be a great post player, and it's still not going to be what we need. That position to me is almost resigned to intangibles like a Kayvon Looney. Like the best post players are the ones that set screens and hit backdoor passes and do things of that nature. That's just my take on James Wiseman. If he doesn't have any wing presence, then it doesn't matter what he does. The second thing I want to say is I think this is a good stretch to show where we're at, in the sense that if we can't win without Curry, then we're not a title team. Because I think it defines a lot of things. You need more than your best player to be there the whole time to really be competitive. And that's all I got. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the call, T. You're breaking up a little bit on the second part there. But this, fair or unfair, right or wrong, this stretch without Steph Curry is going to go a long way toward determining the course of this Warriors season, and whether they look to add or subtract even at the trade deadline, whether they look to try and get the young players even more minutes at the cost of maybe really trying to make a push to get into the playoffs or the play-in tournament. Like the Warriors could deem themselves by the end of this next month without Steph. And look, I think there is some optimism that it's going to be better in terms of, yeah, Steph is going to be out, but Wiggins back and Draymond back at some point here in the near future. But if this team can't pick off some wins without Curry, and they don't have a single one to this point this season, then it is, the conversation is going to shift toward, should they be letting go of some players at the trade deadline to shed some luxury tax? Should they be playing the young players even more and focus on development over, again, trying to make a playoff run? Are you now no longer of the belief that you're within striking distance of being able to be a top 4 team in the West? Are you just, is it 6 seed or bust at that point a month from now? Are you at a point where you're thinking the only thing you can do is just try to get to 10th and get to the play-in and give yourself a shot to win 2 games against another team that's probably right around the 500 mark at best, and work your way into the back end of the tournament that way, and then give it a shot if you're fully healthy? The Warriors are always confident if they have everybody, regardless of seed, that they can make a run. I think last year will prove to you that anything in many ways is possible, but I don't think anybody, again, is going to quibble with the fact that last year's team, top to bottom, was just much better than this year's team. The pieces fit together better, and the Warriors have a long way to go, but it starts now. Like, it's December, but the next month is going to go a long way toward determining how this season ultimately plays out, and how much the Warriors determine that going for it this season is even worth it. That's one of the rats on the table, so to speak, that I think are going to be determined as we watch them here on a night in, night out basis try to play effectively without Steph Curry. Let's go to Ricky in Boston. What's going on, Ricky?
Hey, JD. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right, man. How you doing?
Man, I could be better. I mean, it would have been a nice weekend. Start off my weekend with a Warriors win. You know, it was kind of speechless. You know, not really. You know, I got something to say because of Klay Thompson's performance tonight. You know, we all know that I'm a big Klay Thompson fan, and tonight, you know, for him to step up, you know, without Curry going, 4 for 17, 12 points in 35 minutes, that's just horrible, man. That's just the money that he's making, the contract that he has. You need to step up, Klay. And for a performance like that, man, I mean, like you just said a couple of minutes ago, you know, is it time for the GM to start making some moves to free up some space, right? And maybe let the young players get more playing time and improve the game. I mean, if I was Bob Myers, the GM, I mean, I have to consider, you know, possibly maybe making a move for Klay Thompson, before the All-Star break. You know, get as much as you can. You know, maybe find a team out there that still has the love of the mystique of Klay Thompson, because, you know, Klay Thompson has a lot of pull.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Ricky. Look, I think as far as Klay goes, you're not trading Klay Thompson and his contract at this point. I mean, you're just not. I mean, he's still got another year on it as well. And so, I mean, nobody's beating down the Warriors' door to say, hey, I want to get Klay Thompson right now. It's tough sledding overall. And, you know, he's got to play for the Warriors and play better for the Warriors. I mean, he's making over $40 million this year and $43.2 next year before he's a free agent in 2024. So, I mean, good luck with that. Like, you're not, you know, unless you want to take Russell Westbrook back or somebody with, you know, equally as bad a contract. I think that's probably, you know, the kind of move that you'd be looking at. No, Klay is going to be here, and Klay he needs to play. It is, again, I said this yesterday when the news broke of Steph, and I know we're up against it, but I tweeted this out yesterday when the news first broke, and I really think it rings true, and it's something that I'm going to mention a lot over the course of the time where Steph is out. And it's as simple as this. Like, it's on Klay Thompson, it's on Draymond Green, it's on Jordan Poole to hold this team up. Like, the time is now. The time is now for Klay, Dre, Jordan Poole to keep the Warriors afloat without the comfort of playing with Curry. Now, the question is, let's see if they can, or if they even care enough to put in the effort with, you know, the title hopes not right there in front of them. The title hopes are tabled for now. Not saying they're gone for good for this season, but for now they're tabled. For now, it's just, can you win a freaking road game? And, you know, but to me, it's always on your best players to carry you. So you don't have Steph. Can you hold this team up? How good are you with Wiggins and Draymond and Klay and Poole? Like, what kind of team is that? And the rest of these bench guys. If you just take Steph away, what kind of team is this? Because I think it's frankly wholly unacceptable if this team is, you know, just take Steph Curry away and they're among, let's say, the bottom 2 or 3 teams in the Western Conference. You know, that to me would be unacceptable. Show some champion's blood in keeping this team afloat. Not just show the champion's blood when you're in the midst of a playoff run in a playoff series. And I think that's the one thing that, you know, I'm kind of waiting for from Klay and Draymond and Poole. And look, it doesn't affect their legacy one iota. Those are made dudes in NBA, you know, they're legends. NBA history, the annals of the game, like, they have zero to prove. But you know what? You still got to deal with the games that are right there in front of you. So get together. Come together, hold a meeting, say, hey, we're going to get a grip on this thing and try and keep it afloat. Try and make this season worth a damn a month from now. And, you know, if the guys are injured, and obviously Klay played banged up tonight, Draymond's banged up, that's something that continues to be problematic, because it's not just Steph. It's Steph and Draymond and Wiggins and the rest of it, and that leads toward the results that I think we saw tonight. So 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570 John Dickinson here. Warriors wrap up on 95-7 the game as the Warriors fall tonight to the Sixers. 118-106 in Toronto on Sunday. And then the Warriors are going to finish it up with the Knicks and the Nets on Tuesday and Wednesday. Let's go ahead and hear. First, let's welcome everybody to the 8 o'clock hour.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM in HD1 San Francisco. Always live on Twitch, YouTube, and the free Odyssey app.
All right. We'll also we'll push the break here, and we'll go ahead and hear from Steve Kerr. And then there are a couple of text messages I wanted to get to as well. But let's go ahead and head back to Wells Fargo Center in Philly and hear from the head coach of the Warriors, Steve Kerr, on this one.
I liked the ball movement. Guys were sharing the ball. Didn't like the fouling. I thought those 2 fouls, and I think it was late third, back-to-back on the three-point shots, Harden and Niang. Those hurt us, and just, some reaches and ones that we have to avoid. We just couldn't do it. So they shot 31 free throws to our 13, made 14 more than us, and it was a 12-point game. So there's your game.
What do you think about Jordan's performance tonight? I know you said you wanted him to kind of slow down.
Yeah. Thought he was much better in terms of just, staying poised, and he got off to a slow start, and he did a better job of not getting frustrated and staying in the game emotionally and bringing energy, and the game turned for him, and he obviously carried us offensively for much of the game.
Got no Steph right now and no Wiggins for right now. I mean, Clay's got to score for you guys, obviously, which will amp up his aggression. He was 4-17 tonight. Like, what do you need from him beyond, he's going to have to, make a lot of shots for you, or what type of shots didn't he get tonight that he made? Yeah, I mean, a tough night for Clay. I mean, just the fact that he played, his knee was bothering him at shoot around, and you guys know he was questionable before the game, but he's just guy fights through everything, and so just his effort tonight was there, but the shots weren't going. He had some good ones. He maybe rushed a couple, but just wasn't his night, and he'll bounce back.
There was that alley-oop, I think, to third quarter, Dante to James. He was like, you really liked it, kind of talking about it. Was it more the pass? Was it like the screen setting? Kind of walk me through what you liked the most about that play. Just the ball movement and the action. I thought James did a really nice job at both ends tonight. He got to the dunker. He made himself available. They had several plays where, they just stayed back with him, and we got open threes early in the fourth when we put him out there. We had 3 or 4 open threes, and one of the reasons they were open is because James was right at the rim, and as that lob threat, the defense pulled in. And I thought he did a nice job defensively too, kind of playing cat and mouse on pick and roll, and he's gotten a lot better. He's really picked up a lot over the last few weeks with all the practicing in Santa Cruz and the game action, the reps. It was fun to watch James play.
You think he's going to stick around with you guys through the stretch? I know part of the reason he's in the rotation, I know Draymond, but right. Do you plan to keep him around?
He'll be with us the rest of the trip for sure, and then we'll reevaluate at that point. But you can see, I mean, he gives us something we otherwise don't have, just that lob threat, the scoring threat around the basket. I like being able to play him and have him impacting games that are meaningful. And that's an important part of his development, and at the same time, we're trying to win every game. And it's been a rough go. So we'll just, play all that stuff by ear.
Obviously got off to the great shooting start. Just what was getting him open and getting him those looks early on in the game?
Coming home is always fun. And you knew Dante would come out with energy, and the fact that he knocked down, I think, 5 threes in the first quarter, or at least 4. Was fantastic. And, he did as usual, great job bringing energy and life to the game, and, 10 rebounds and, moved the ball. He had 6 assists. I thought Dante was great tonight.
I have asking you last 5 the same questions. I'm going to ask you tonight again. What do you think your bench performance for the finals? And my second question is, Klay Thompson, when you have back-to-back games, he plays first game. I know there is no easy game maybe, but many people say if he plays second game, it will be better. What do you think?
We have about 10 people who work full-time in the performance group. I listen to them. So when they tell me, he should play the first game, we play him the first game. As far as our bench, is that what you asked? You always want to talk about the finals, in the middle of the season. We're trying to win a road game. Okay. So, I'm not talking about the finals, but we know what we have to do to get better. Got to continue to grow. Our young guys have to continue to develop. They're doing a nice job. And we're going to have to be healthy, to go anywhere meaningful. And we've got to get better defensively. We at some point we have to be able to play without fouling, or at least limiting our fouling. And that was a problem tonight. It's been a problem all season long. I just think that it's always difficult going to a new team when you're in the league. You got to pick up new terminology, different tendencies of teammates and all that kind of stuff. And I just feel like Dante's really comfortable now, and it's great to see. But I love how hard he plays. I love the passion with which he plays. And the guys really love playing with him. So he's been a fantastic addition.
Chance on Wiggins Sunday?
I think there's a chance. I talked to him today, and he was hopeful, but there hasn't been a decision made yet.
Steve, they're much different players, Kevon and James, but on a night where Kevon has 9 assists, how important is it for James to continue to see the ability to kind of move the ball around in your guys' offense from that center position?
Well, James, we're just trying to keep things simple. Loon wasn't much of a passer his first couple of years. I think it takes a while to really see the defense and understand where the openings are and where the ball should go. So just trying to focus on keeping James as a dive man, lob threat, and get him more comfortable with the NBA game. And if he just continues to do exactly what he's doing, just working hard and keep moving forward, he's going to be great.
Yeah, so solid night for James Wiseman in the ball game tonight, and Steve Kerr with a couple of bits of good news there. I think as far as Wiggins goes, a chance that Andrew Wiggins could play on Sunday, that's good news. And I mean, we're talking about it. I mean, the Warriors have to get as whole as they possibly can here without Steph to try and get some wins, although no decision made there. But yeah, you got to hope that Wiggins is able to get back on Sunday and get back for the rest of the trip and not have any more injury issues with that adductor. And I think another piece of good news out of the post-game press conference, the fact that Coach Kerr said that James Wiseman's going to be with the team throughout the remainder of the trip. I think that's a step. And look, I think part of it is Draymond being in doubt as far as whether or not he's going to be able to go, dealing with the quad contusion. And, I think having you're going to have to balance the playing a lot with Santa Cruz when the opportunity presents itself with being around the team and getting opportunities to play in certain situations. I have a lot of text messages on the Xfinity mobile text line about JaMychal Green. And look, it's been rough. JaMychal Green has been rough. And I understand those of you out there, and there's many of you, too many to just read the area code on the Xfinity mobile text line, because it's been more than a few that are saying, why is JaMychal Green playing? You should be playing Wiseman. And you know what? I think that's a fair one at this point. Different types of players, even though they're playing the same position. But I think that's one area where I think at some point you have to make the call, if you're the Warriors, that it is beneficial to just play the guy. But in saying that, you have to understand where the Warriors are coming from on it. And that's the simple fact that just playing the guy, in their mind, when he hasn't earned it or when they feel he really is hurting the team, like the Warriors don't look at it as, you know what, we don't care about wins. We're going to let all the young guys just play. Like, they're not to that point yet. Might get to that point at some point between now and the end of the season, but they're not to that point yet. And so I think they do feel that they owe, on a night-in, night-out basis, the rest of the team and the veterans in particular, a chance to try and go out and be as good as they possibly can. So I think it is a little bit of a catch-22, but JaMychal Green, is, every night there's more and more a case to be made. Just give the minutes to Wiseman and live with the consequences. I think maybe more than, because of the position on the roster, I think it's more than even Moody, right? Because it's more than even Kuminga, who's had a role sort of carved out for him as of late as well. So 888-957-9570. John Dickinson here on 95.7 The Game. Do we still have Jimmy in Bayview on the phones? Let's get to Jimmy in Bayview here on Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game. What's going on, Jimmy?
Hey, John. Great show. I just wanted to talk about Clay a little bit. I think Clay's going to have a good game every 5 or 6 games, and that's just what you're going to get. I think this is the new Klay Thompson, and we just have to live with it, unfortunately. I mean, I'm hoping Kuminga can keep developing through, Curry being injured, and I don't understand why Moody's not getting more minutes. I mean, Ty Jerome seems kind of worthless to me, but I don't know if making trades at this point is going to get you anything, because Wiseman looks almost 2 years out, and Lacob likes him, and he's paying for him. So, and then who else are you going to trade? There's really nobody you can trade. So I think if the Warriors, there's 15 games. If they go 3-12, I mean, they're out of it. It's right here. Like, this is the stand. So I just wanted to see what you thought about that. Thanks.
Yeah, as far as the last part goes, I've said it. Like, if this team really careens without Steph, they are going to have to look themselves in the mirror at that point and say, what is the benefit of really trying to grind and trying to be a team that's 10, 15 over 500 in the second half of a season when that only gets you, say, to the play-in tournament. I understand with all the wear and tear and the years and the championships at that point why you would look at it that way. I guess where I'm getting at is try to do everything you can in the meantime to avoid 3-12, let's say, in the next 15 games, which puts you in that position. As far as making a trade, yeah, I mean, it's well chronicled that Joe Lacob likes James Wiseman a lot and thinks he's going to be a hell of a player. And if there was a young player to move, I think he would be the one that would make the most sense to move among Kuminga and Moody. I put Jordan Poole aside for now because he's only a $4 million player for this season, as opposed to a player that's going to be making 30 in terms of his average annual value beginning next season. He's much more tradable next season. We had a texter that said, hey, if you can trade Westbrook, you can trade Clay. Maybe next year when it's in the final year of his deal and he's making $43 million, he's an expiring contract. That may be appealing to a team. But if you're going to make that kind of a trade, you're taking back a major salary in doing so. And you're also at that point probably taking somebody back that's got more years, which I don't think would necessarily make sense. Now, maybe you break it up. You take a couple of players back. Maybe there's a team that would want to assume that contract. And we're getting way ahead of ourselves here, but there could also be a team that would basically say to you, hey, we'll take him. We're a non-contending team. We have cap space. We'll take him. Oklahoma City has done this with players. They did it with Al Horford a couple years back where, hey, we have cap space we're not going to use. You want to give us a first-round pick, we'll take that contract on. So, and I don't think the Warriors are not going to be in the business of giving up first-round picks to trade Klay Thompson to offload the salary. I mean, that's just I don't see that happening at all. So, but those are the kinds of moves when you start to look at, all right, well, could they trade him? Yeah, next year, but that's what that kind of a trade would look like. A couple of people on the text line, somebody came down my road for saying that there is an appearance, and sometimes sometimes perception is viewed as reality as it relates to Draymond Green, and the fact that Steph Curry goes out due to injury on Wednesday, Draymond gets ejected. We've seen Steph Curry be out before and Draymond get ejected, or Draymond be less available to play. All of a sudden, maybe some of the injuries that he's been playing through, where he's a little banged up, he's not. Somebody came down my road, said, JD, you can't do, you shouldn't say something like that. Look, all I'm relaying is that's a legitimate question that pops into fans' minds, and I've got a board full of text messages here. 925. It seems like Draymond always is, quote, injured whenever Steph Curry is out. There was another one. The fact that Draymond gives up on the team every time. That's something that. Look, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but fans do believe that, and fans do wonder about it at a minimum. And look, like I said earlier, I can acknowledge the fact that it's something that's being discussed while also saying, hey, he's listed on the injury report with an injury. And, maybe the Warriors are using this time right now as an opportunity to give Draymond a little bit of a break, knowing that they're really going to need him as things push forward here. And look, not that he's going to be out the entire time that Steph's out, but a game here, a game there, if he's less than 100%, get him back on track, because you're going to need him to be a major part of things down the stretch here in this season. So I think that ultimately becomes something that could be part of the equation. Hey, play it cool right now, because you don't want, and Steve Kerr addressed this going back to last week, and it was, I think, after the Indiana game, or it was maybe the game in Salt Lake City, or maybe the day in between those games. They're all kind of running together at this point. But Coach Kerr said, hey, Steph, it's a little harder to recover after some of the back-to-backs, 3 games in 4 nights. He's a little banged up here, and it takes him a little longer to recover. And if you keep putting him out there over and over and over without giving him a break here and there, it doesn't end well. And I think you could make the same case for Draymond, in that, hey, give him a little breather. You're going to need him once Curry comes back and once this team really tries to get on a run. And so you have him fresher for that stretch run when you are trying to push yourself back to 500, back over 500, out of the play-in tournament, up to a top 4 seed. A bunch of those things at this point feel like they're off the table, at least for the time being. And just kind of scanning around here with the Warriors' loss tonight and looking at some of the other games in the NBA tonight, you look at the Warriors now dipping to 14-16 through 30 games. They are now out on the outside looking in at 14-16. They're 11th in the West at 14-16. They're a half game out of the play-in tournament. They are now 2.5 out of 6th still, so it's very close with Portland at 16-13. Portland got blasted tonight in Dallas, as the Mavs are now 15-14. Sacramento won tonight in Detroit, so they continue what has been a fine start for them. They're 16-12 and have a ton of home games. They went 3-3 on their 6-game road trip. That was pretty daunting. They played in Milwaukee and in Philly and in Toronto, where the Warriors are going to be on Sunday. They won in Toronto. They won in Cleveland in that trip and handled their business against Detroit. So they got out of that 13-9 when they left on the trip, 16-12 coming back. So they're 5th in the West at 16-12 and inching closer to the top 4 at this point than being on the outside looking in. So there's still a long way to go. But the one thing you don't want to do is dip any farther out, because no matter what you think of the Clippers or Dallas or any of these other teams, Utah, Portland, Minnesota, I think we have seen enough of a lot of those teams, and you may even throw Sacramento in there, to think that none of them are great teams necessarily, and they've all had hot stretches at different times here through the first 30, but none of them are bad teams either. And none of them are going to be bad enough to where you can be sub 500 by multiple games and think that you're going to wind up even with a play-in tournament spot. Like that's the one thing that is becoming, I think, abundantly clear by the night here as you look at it. There may be 10 teams in the West that win 41 games. It is that jumbled up, and it looks like there's that many teams that are just, they're beating each other on certain nights. They're beating the truly woeful teams most of the time. And, as things start to separate and Memphis is taking over the top spot now overall, the Warriors 6 games back of the top spot with the 3-game losing streak, and the Grizzlies have won 7 in a row, and Memphis starting to vault themselves into that conversation among the best teams in the NBA at 19-9 now. So we'll have to keep an eye on all of that, but getting too far removed from 500 and then having to work your way back at the end of the season to wrap the thing up and just to have a shot at a play-in tournament, that's not a position that you want to be in if you're the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference. So hopefully some good news on Andrew Wiggins, hopefully some good news on Draymond Green as the Warriors head north of the border to continue this road trip in Toronto coming up here on Sunday on 95.7 The Game. So we'll call it a night on that note as the Warriors lose to the Sixers 118-106. Next up, Warriors This Week, tomorrow, 10 a.m. Join me and Whitey Gleason as we'll be taking your phone calls. We'll be getting into depth about just where the Warriors go from here without Steph Curry, everything that's been going well, things that aren't going well, trying to make sense of where the Warriors go from here as far as the remainder of this trip and then the homestand that follows that, and trying to make do without Steph Curry. That's from 10 a.m. until 1 here on 95.7 The Game tomorrow, and then I'll be back with Warriors Live on Sunday, 2 p.m. for Warriors Live. 2 p.m., that's a 3 o'clock tip-off here Pacific time as the Warriors take on the Raptors in Toronto. So for Sterling Bennett, everybody in our San Francisco studios, thanks for the help. Wonderful job by one and all in cutting the highlights in the post-game sound. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Warriors This Week, and we'll talk to you on Sunday with Warriors Live before the Dubs face the Raptors. Sixers 118, Warriors 106. Warriors now 14-16. We'll talk to you tomorrow right here at 95.7 The Game.
Kansas City Steak Company, another AmericanEagle.com success story. Started in 1932 as a family-owned butcher shop, today they're a leading distributor of superior all-American steaks delivered right to your door, ready for the grill and your taste buds. When it came to their website, an average site wouldn't do. They chose AmericanEagle.com to take their website to the next level. With a dramatic increase in competition and a softening market demand, they had 2 challenges: improve their brand presence and message, and produce a positive return. AmericanEagle.com got to work and executed usability studies and detailed audits of site experience, digital assets, and marketing. The result? An integrated digital marketing and customer experience plan, organic traffic increase of 20%, and a long-term roadmap for success. If you love great steaks, go to kansascitysteaks.com for website design, development, and online solutions that bring efficiency and results. Visit AmericanEagle.com. If you need a results-driven website, call the team at AmericanEagle.com at 877-WEBNOW1. That's 877-WEBNOW1.
This holiday season, tee it up at the Golf Mart for the hottest gifts from Ping and Bushnell. Save $150 off on the